Welcome in, everybody. It is Basketball by Association, an abbreviated version because microphones are amazing. My name is Arky Shea, very pissed off at equipment right now, but that's okay because I'm about to be enlightened and have my mood brought up by Joel C. Cortez and our NBA talk for the NBA Finals. Joel, hello, friend.
Hey, it's just it's a throwback episode. Remember the BBA bite? We did that for like 10 minutes back in the day, and so this is essentially a BBA bite due to time constraints, which means we will not guess who this episode 109 is named after. Instead, we're just going to call it the Shawn Marion episode, The Matrix, four-time All-Star, 2011 NBA champ with the Dallas Mavericks. He was on the 99-2000 All-Rookie team and a two-time All-NBA player. His best days, of course, most well-known with the Phoenix Suns. 7 seconds or less. Dude could put up some stats. Please do not go back and watch video of his jump shot. However, it is a sight to behold. It is probably, in my opinion, the ugliest NBA jumper of all time. But Shawn Marion could certainly get it done on all the other ends. YouTube is where you find the video version. Like, share, subscribe. We got the podcast audio-only version on Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes. And now, Arky Shea, we're ready to talk about the NBA Finals.
Briefly, I kind of forgotten he was on that Mavericks team once you brought it up. I was like, yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was Dirk's front court mate.
I was about to say, not a small piece either. Like, I just sort of, you watch so much basketball and talk about it so much, sometimes things just go right through your brain for a minute and it don't quite sink in. You're like, oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we waited a day to record this because, well, Game 3 was on Wednesday night. We wanted to get a little bit of a reaction there. And Joel, I got to be honest with you. I feel like I'm right on course with my prediction for the series so far. That if Boston were able to grab any of the games in Golden State, especially if they got Game 1, then I thought they would win the series. Well, they got Game 1. And now they lead 2-1 after holding off the Warriors come back in the third quarter on Wednesday night. And Joel, I feel like I'm right in the wheelhouse of where I thought this series would be if that one caveat had been cleared.
It's been hard to keep track of your predictions because after every game, you've texted me that whoever won that game was winning that series. But it does.
Have I been wrong? Have I been wrong yet?
It does feel that way. We're going to find out whether you're wrong. I think when the Celtics stole Game 1, it very much set us up for a Game 7, which is fun. Looking forward to that. I think that holds. I still will take the Warriors in that situation because Game 7 would be at home. But yeah, they're reeling a little bit. Steph Curry, of course, injured the ankle in Game 3. Sounds like he might be all right, but things just did not look in rhythm for Golden State at any point. They made runs. They, in fact, led the game very, very briefly, both in the first 30 seconds, and then in the third quarter, they were up, I think, by 1 point ever so briefly. But Boston was in control the whole way. Even as Golden State made those runs, Boston just kind of took the punch and then got one of their own in. And in Game 1 and Game 3, both Celtics wins, they've held Golden State to just complete power outages in the fourth quarter. For a Warriors team that's been so vaunted in the third quarter coming out of halftime, which, by the way, the Warriors have won every single game of this series so far, that fourth quarter is where Boston has really showed its mettle in the games that they could not shut down Golden State. That was Game 2. The Warriors were able to win, but they were already pulling away with it at that point. But here in Game 1 and Game 3, Boston locks up, and Golden State has not been able to get out in transition and get easy baskets, both because the Celtics have gotten back on defense so well and picked up guys in transition very well, but also because Golden State just doesn't seem to be having the same type of defensive impact right now. I know the Celtics turned the ball over 12 times in Game 3, and when they did, that's when you saw Golden State get out and run. That's when you saw Andrew Wiggins get a couple dunks. You saw Steph Curry get a couple of threes, or you had a swing pass to Klay Thompson, and he gets his. And all of a sudden, everything looks right in the world, and the Warriors are making that run. But it's not happening often enough. Yeah. Boston is protecting the basketball, and they're not giving Golden State anything easy unless it's that transition. Because when it's a half-court defensive set, the Warriors are having to work real hard.
Yeah, I've said this on this podcast before that And I liken trying to defend Golden State for 4 quarters like trying to defuse a bomb with your toes, right? Like, yeah, it's probably doable, but it's difficult, right? Like, if you're going to defend for 4, it's going to be difficult to be able to do that consistently. And Golden State's just going to get there at a certain point, right? Like, they're too good, they're too experienced, they got too much shooting. I'll talk about in a second what I think they're lacking, which is sort of shown up, especially in this series. But I think it's unreasonable to suspect that you won't see Golden State make runs in games. They had that big third quarter where they came out and they looked like they were making that game right back into where they wanted it to be. And obviously, like you said, they got up very, very, very briefly. But Steph Curry said after the game, they had to come out and win the third quarter and put so much energy, emphasis into that the fourth quarter, it's like a whole nother game. Right? Like, it's a whole nother game, and Boston sort of had that built-in like advantage of having a big lead that they can sort of play around with. So it's sort of fascinating to watch. I want to, since we're sort of loose on, or not loose, I guess we're tight on time, the opposite of loose, actually. I wanted to ask you a couple of things about this series. One of those is how Marcus Smart, especially in game 3, like, for as much as we sort of in our last podcast, we talked about at the end, would we put Marcus Smart on Steph Curry and have him sort of be the defender, knowing Marcus Smart was a little bit limited because of a foot injury. Marcus Smart's really good, man. Like, he's been really, really good on Steph Curry, and that is huge. I think I saw the stat overall that on the 9 contested, I think Marcus Smart, contested 9 shots, I believe it was, against the Warriors last night, and they missed all 9 of them. You're like, he's a defensive player of the year for a reason, and if he's anywhere near 100%, like it seemed like he was playing a little bit last night, it's a game changer for Boston. It's why this team was only a small underdog coming into this game against the Warriors. They're really good.
Smart looks like he's moving as well as you could expect at this point.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know that's 100%, but you're not seeing any real limitations in movement.
That's the key. Yeah.
And it's opening up so many other things because you go through that starting lineup of, Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Robert Williams III. Name me one guy from that 5 who isn't defending really well right now. You can't find anybody. And then you get Grant Williams coming in and there's zero drop off in what he's giving. Derek White, zero drop off. In fact, Derek White, maybe the best defender of the bunch right now with the impact that he's had, as good as Smart has been. White's ability just to be disruptive has been phenomenal. So, yeah, they're loaded with good defensive players. They fit well together. I thought Robert Williams was probably the X factor in game 3.
Good. Huge.
Shot blocking, and then Horford got a couple of blocks in there too. Those were effort plays, but they were plays with some real brains behind it too, to be able to time it to get to those balls without then fouling. How easy is it for shot blockers to go for a pump fake? And both Williams and Horford have had the presence of mind to stay down until that exact moment where they know it is a shot. And then they're both good enough, long enough to be able to get to that. And Williams has just been so active around the basket that when he's been in the game, it's taken away a lot of Golden State's ability to get there. We saw Andrew Wiggins get fouled and get to the free throw line a number of times, but he didn't complete any of those plays, in and one opportunities. Whereas Jason Tatum seemed like when he got to the basket for the Celtics and was getting fouled, he was completing those and you were getting and one looks. So yeah, hats off to Smart, hats off to Robert Williams. On the opposite side, Kevon Looney, who was so instrumental in the previous round against Dallas and against Memphis before that, they need that Kevon Looney back. He's barely played. It was 17 minutes in game 3. Draymond Green, while effective-ish defensively, doesn't give you that same rim protection. And so you get a Jason Tatum going to the basket when the Warriors are small, and he's getting there and getting fouled and being able to finish. Green is not able to provide that by himself. And Draymond has given them nothing offensively. He's had a couple of good setup passes, but was in foul trouble a lot of game 3. So is Steph Curry. You look at Curry and Green, and minus 14 on the floor for Curry, minus 13 for Green. Andrew Wiggins, who was the lead defender against Dallas, minus 16 on the floor.
Yeah, Draymond, you don't expect a ton offensively from him either, but like his defense has been not very good this series either. In fact, he's given up a 1.24 points per possession down, like when he's sort of the main defender, and that's his worst in an NBA Finals in a decade. Like he got into the foul trouble, as you mentioned, fouled out of game 3. He called himself soft at the end of the game. It wasn't the same Draymond, and Draymond's not been very good in this series overall, right? Like you haven't been able to depend as much on Draymond as you thought you would be able to. And I think you've seen the Warriors sort of struggle with that. I mean, it's not the first time the Warriors had to come back from a big deficit in this series just to make the game competitive and give themselves a shot. So,
and in this case, I would say, Draymond's saying that he's soft, but he was also on the floor. He's running into people. He's getting into more fights with Grant Williams. They're bumping. This is a case of work smarter, not harder. You can think that you were soft, but I think you played stupid. Really, it's not a matter of like effort or having to mix it up even more. The refs are looking for it at this point. They're all over anytime that Draymond and Grant Williams are near each other, and Draymond getting tangled up with other players too. Like that's the foul trouble that got you to where you were, and you weren't even that effective when you were on the floor for 35 minutes otherwise. So I think it's a matter of he's got to knock down a jump shot here or there. I know he only took 4 field goals, but he's got to be a threat so that people are not sagging off of him so far.
You got to keep Boston honest.
You got to be able to complete some layups on a pick and roll. Right now, he's not even rolling, but when he's not really popping either, he'll set that screen, but he's just kind of hanging out because everybody knows he's not a 3-point threat, but he's not diving to the basket either. So that's a messy thing they're going to have to clean up on the offensive end. Defensively, it is that cliche, who wants it more, blah, blah, blah. But we have seen in 3 games now, whichever team has come out with sustained defensive energy, it has then leached into everything else that they do. And that's been the team that's won the game. So Golden State played well in game 1, but Boston was definitely on a different level. It woke the Warriors up. They come back in front of their home crowd. They look like the Golden State of old. Boston didn't have an answer for that. Boston, on the other hand, gets home. And now you've got home cooking, and their energy went up yet another level. And this is the way that, especially the deep playoffs go. Golden State is going to have to find a way on the road to come out and sap the energy out of the building early. So we're talking a haymaker in like the first quarter, and something that they can sustain into halftime where it gets the crowd nervous, where it's nervous cheering, imploring their team to play better, not where they're all amped up because they smell blood in the water. And that's exactly what we saw off and on from the Celtics, and especially once you hit that fourth quarter. And once Steph was hurt and so on, Boston goes on their run, and they hold the Golden State Warriors, of all people, to 11 points in a quarter. And they held them to 18 in game 1 in that fourth quarter. So I think the first quarter and the fourth quarter are very pivotal times in these games.
You want to make a team nervous? Have a 7-point possession, like Golden State did.
I've never seen that before.
I don't know if anybody's had, right? It was such a like, oh, hey, this is a 2-point game now. What the?
And you're gonna love this for your Knicks. It immediately invalidated the whole Reggie Miller play. It's gone. It's no longer amazing because Steph did it. Steph did it in like 3 seconds worth of game time.
I do want to mention that if you want to talk about getting people nervous, and I think we can sort of wrap up with this sort of tied to the conversation, and then thoughts into how we feel if we've changed how we think the series is going to go. If Klay Thompson is finding his rhythm, like we sort of saw in game 3, I think if you're Golden State, knowing that even though it was a big margin at the end, that going into the fourth, you were very much in the game. Draymond played terribly. Klay was starting to maybe find his shot a little bit. Like there's a reason, if you're Golden State, to be very okay with where you are going into game 4, because all the ingredients could then come back and gel together for you to be able to take game 4. My only worry is that Boston has used some of that size underneath really, really well. They played extremely good defense for the majority of this series so far. If they can get that rhythm going defensively again and show that kind of energy and not sort of sag a little bit back, because again, this is the shortest time in between games they'll have in this series is between games 3 and games 4. You worry a little bit about Robert Williams and sort of how he's going to be able to rebound with his knee, but you get some kind of similar defensive efforts. I feel like I could like where I'm at with Boston too, but like I still think this series, I'm with you. I still think this is a 7-game series, and I can see why both teams would be very confident going into game 4 or have reason to be confident going into game 4.
Yeah, I don't think either team should be hitting the panic button by any means. I think for Golden State, with as deep of a bench as they have, they've got to find somebody who not just comes in and plays okay. Jordan Poole played okay, but was -6. Otto Porter Jr. made some nice plays, but was a +4 and gave you 6 points. Those were really the only bench players for the Warriors of note. That depth is what's gotten them here in a lot of ways. They need somebody to come in and have a great game in game 4, especially if Draymond and Looney are really not giving you much. And Andrew Wiggins is having a fairly pedestrian game as far as his impact goes. So you got to find somebody. Boston had 3 different players all in their starting lineup, it's true, with 20-plus points. It's not like they got a ton off their bench either. Grant Williams gave them 10. They got 7 out of Derek White. Peyton Pritchard played for like 10 minutes. So very identical, but I think with the way things are set up and with as well as Boston starting 5 as a whole unit is playing, Golden State either needs that step up to happen from Green or Looney. I don't know that that's going to happen just because Boston is that good defending inside in a way that Dallas was not. So it's going to have to be Poole. It's going to have to be Nemanja Bjelica having a good game. I don't want to see Andre Iguodala in the finals at all anymore. They played him in game 1. He missed game 2. The Warriors won. They tried bringing him back in game 3 for just a couple minutes. There's nothing left in the tank there. You'd be better off bringing in Damian Lee or somebody else. I'm not convinced that Gary Payton II is healthy either. Every time he goes to the basket, he doesn't seem to have the lift. He's not moving very well yet. I don't know that I would keep bringing him back as my defensive guy. Give me Juan Toscano-Anderson. Give me a look at Damian Lee. Give me Moses Moody, who played very, very well. And yeah, throwing a rookie in the finals, but you're past that point. You've got all these different weapons and options. To me, I have seen enough of Iguodala. I've seen enough of Gary Payton for at least a week where I'm probably not coming back to him either unless he's healthy.
Okay, a sentence or two or less. It could be just a Jared if you want to use it. Do you feel differently about put it this way? Who do you think now wins how many games?
I'm still taking the Warriors in 7, but game 4 is pivotal, not just because of the 3-1 implications, but because Golden State's got to make a statement here. They've got to get a win in Boston now that the Celtics have taken a game on home court. It would even things back up in both the metaphorical but the very realistic sense as well. But I think from a mental standpoint, game 4 is absolutely critical.
I think Boston takes this in 6. I feel like the way I've seen them progress in these first 3 games, there is nothing in me that thinks that they wouldn't be able to come back to Boston and sort of choke the life out of this series in 6. I think you probably drop game 4. I think Golden State comes back with a huge effort. Boston doesn't lose back-to-back games. It just hasn't happened since January or something. It just doesn't happen. They come back and win game right? Game 5. Yeah. So they come in game 5. Boston ends up winning. Right, hold on. Yeah, game 4, Golden State. Game 5, Boston, and I think game 6 will go Boston too. And I think that will be sad for me to watch that happen to one of my hated rivals. So.
It would go because game 4 is here in Boston, so game 5 would go Golden State. Game 6 would be Boston. Game 7 would be Golden State.
I'm saying Boston loses game 4, wins game 5, wins game 6.
Yeah, makes sense. So. All right, everybody. Sean Marion episode is in the book. Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes is where you can find us. See the video version on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. Next week, technology willing, we will have a full episode for you.
Mwah!